Zambia, the government is to review codes to abolish death penalty. Currently, the death penalty is mandatory for a number of crimes, including murder, rape, armed robbery, and aggravated burglary. Now, the Minister of Justice Mulambo Haimbe says Zambia's death penalty laws will be reviewed with a view to abolishing capital punishment.
Mulambo Haimbe said the government was committed to protecting the sanctity of life and that the death penalty was inconsistent with this aim. Now, joining us is Michael Zulu, human rights and governance activist. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, comrades.
Good
morning, viewers.
Thanks. Amnesty International reported that at the end of 2021, there were 257 people on death row. Has any been executed yet?
Thank you very much, comrade. Yes, we have the number of people on death row, even as we speak, in Zambia. But apparently, the government of Hakainde Hichilema is moving towards abolishing the death penalty. The last known death hanging in Zambia was done under Frederick Chiluba government in 1997 in January. So despite people being on death row since 1997, when I think I'm not mistaken, 3 people were hanged, we have not seen anybody being hanged. And that is why of late, the momentum on abolishing the death penalty has been rising, and the government seems to have been responding to that. So that is where we are as Zambia. All the successive presidents after Frederick Chiluba have sort of refused to allow anybody to be hanged.
Michael, can you maybe give us a sense of what the people of Zambia think about the death penalty? Now, it's one thing for the government to have a disposition against the death penalty and to work towards abolishing it. But of course, there are the people. What do the people think and feel about the death penalty? And do they support this move by the government?
Well, in Zambia currently, there is obviously mixed feelings about abolishing the death penalty, because people are looking at it from 2 angles. From the angle of human rights, people are saying the death penalty should be abolished. But again, from a social angle, people are saying it's not fair for victims, for example, of murder, who have lost, or families who have lost relatives or friends due to being murdered. So it's not fair for the criminals to be let loose. So it's still a hot debate. Civil society is pushing towards abolishing the death penalty, while a number of citizens think it's premature to end the death penalty now, because they feel murder crimes, for example, are going to escalate, especially when people know that they will not be hanged. Another angle that the citizens are looking at is that it's not fair to keep somebody who murdered another person, and you are using taxpayers' money to take care of them in the prison, even if they are not being hanged, but they are still being taken care of by taxpayers' money. So if you are a taxpayer, for example, who has had his son murdered, you think you take it as a double punishment for you. You are being punished, first of all, you've lost your relative, and on the other hand, you are supporting the person who murdered your relative by feeding them in the prison.
Well, of course, the abolition of the death penalty conversation started with the previous government. President Hakainde Hichilema also, of course, continued with that conversation. It, began again in May 2022. Do you see it passing through, being abolished completely by this government? Or maybe, it's a conversation that will continue?
Yes, comrade. I think is some sort of goodwill from Hakainde Hichilema's government in as far as reforming certain laws are concerned. The death penalty is one of them. The Public Order Act is one of them. The defamation of the president is another law that is being looked at. So we as citizens are hopeful that this will come to fruition, especially those of us from the human rights space. We are very optimistic that the death penalty will be abolished in Zambia. Of course, it will still attract divergent views from the citizens.
Zulu, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We, of course, will be visiting this conversation. The conversation about death penalty is one that's been had across the continent. So we look forward to having you again and maybe seeing an update in this regard when next we have you. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, comrades. Good day.
Now, this is still Breakfast Central. Of course, we want you to participate. What are your thoughts on the death penalty? Do you think that it should be abolished around the continent? Or do you think it's something that should be reserved for certain grave offenses, of course, like murder, as is the case in many states?